to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, an unfiltered discussion related to nursing and healthcare. My name is Amie.
And my name is Sara.
And we are your podcast hosts. Today we'll be concluding our series on lateral nursing violence. So let's get into it. So today we actually have a little guest that will be on our show. Isn't that interesting, Sara?
It is. It's actually someone that's been in the background for a while, but now we're getting him to speak on our show.
Absolutely, yes. He's been our sound editor slash support system for how to kind of make sure that we're getting our podcast out there and making sure that the quality is good and adding our music in. He's been actually quite instrumental in making our podcast sound very good. So I'll introduce him. Here he is. His name is Jordan, and I'll get him to talk about himself a little bit.
Currently enrolled, or I've been accepted into a nursing program. So I'll be able to provide some perspectives, at least for what it'd be like to be a nursing student in their mid-30s, anyway, and a male one at that. So we'll see how all that goes. So certainly, I've been keenly aware, based on the fact that I'm going into the belly of the beast, as it were, of lateral nursing violence. So I was asked to kind of discuss some theories as to why this is the case, and before people accuse me of mansplaining, just let me let me forestall you and say that most of the studies that I'll be referencing were conducted and written by females, so I'm just kind of the delivery system for those. And so yeah, let's kind of dive into it a little bit and see what the research says and what the findings are.
Yeah, and maybe even just quickly before we mansplain, we kind of actually talk about some of the theories and thoughts behind it. Just a quick recap. So our last episode, we talked about our own perspectives and own experiences on like how myself and Sara had experienced lateral nursing violence. And then our first episode was really like, what does it look like? How can it appear? But we really want to talk a little bit more about, and just briefly, really about why it exists and why it's so prevalent. So, Jordan, if you don't mind, and then maybe Sara, feel free to kind of jump in with comments and let's kind of see where this goes.
Yeah, like I think the purpose of this episode is just we want to dive into a little bit of the behavioral science of what bullying and harassment is, and also give the listeners some real takeaway points on what they can do if this is something that's happening to them or someone they know. So we really want to just have a conversation and keep that conversation going and just start a movement to where we're going to make this a better place for everyone.
Been reading and like I did see in an article that I did read that like there's a particular like the earliest mention of lateral violence in the literature is I think it's Freres, and I apologize already if I'm saying it incorrectly because it seems like a French name, that talk about this kind of oppressed group model or the lateral violence, which is now termed horizontal violence. And really, a lot of supporters believe that nurses are traditionally are that oppressed group, and that we have been rendered powerless by like the medical system and the medical establishment. And there's actually been quite a bit of data that talks about how this problem extensively has been really documented. But what's lacking really in the research is one, how to combat it, and two, that whole like an almost like an education piece in terms of, yes, it's so ubiquitous, but how do we support people, or how do we essentially empower people to, one, because we do know it's cultural, to either deal with the culture that kind of perpetuates this type of behavior, and then like do we build policies or things around this to kind of help support those people that are really at risk. And it sounds to me that the people that would be most at risk for this, based on even just these explanations, would be your newer nurse. They seem like they'd be attacked much sooner, as well as someone who is even new to that working environment, as well as students. It seems to me that those are the most people that are at risk for encountering lateral nursing violence. But I don't think it captures all of the aspects, because I don't think you necessarily have to be new to experience this, because I could tell you from even my own experience, I wasn't necessarily a new nurse, but definitely some of the characteristics in terms of that whole queen bee aspect, you definitely can see it in other ranks of the nursing profession, especially in those leadership type roles.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, I think that just going back to the hierarchy of the medical system. So there's pressure from above, right? So as much as we'd like to say that doctors and nurses are equal and we're part of an interprofessional team, the fact is there still is a lot of inequity in terms of power. And I think you can
Right.
further compound that with the fact that there are so many things um, working as a nurse that are out of our control. So we have difficult patients, possibly violent patients. We're always short staffed.
Yep.
There's just nowhere for this pressure to go. So some nurses will take it out on maybe people at home. Other nurses will take it out on their teammates because there's just nowhere for it to go. And some nurses just don't have healthy coping habits. And when you work on a team where the dynamics are just not healthy, or maybe it's just not a cohesive team, I could see this easily happening.
Absolutely. And I also feel like just with those things that you mentioned, it just kind of triggered something in my own mind. Like the fact that our career, too, and just within healthcare, it's constantly changing. And there's constantly new evidence and new things coming out. And I feel that that's also a part where we can see that power imbalance, that newer nurse who's like, oh, I'm innovative and here's a newer practice. And maybe someone who is more stuck in their ways and this is how they've done things for 25 years, it can come off as as quite scary when someone's saying, "Hey, there's actually a better way to do something." It can be threatening to that person, really. And I think we have to take into account that like for example, newer documentation systems, all these things put pressure on people who are used to doing things in a certain way, and then that aspect of change can really be frightening. And right, they end up taking it out on their peers, their colleagues, and it appears in that form of lateral or horizontal nursing violence.
I think Sarah mentioned in the last podcast, if you're spending all of that mental energy just essentially navigating the social minefield of your workplace, I mean, what are you actually able to? How are you able? What do you have left to spend on your job?
People adapt in certain ways, right? So some people might just stop caring. So they've checked out mentally, they're just clocking in and clocking out and doing the job because they're trying to protect their mental health. Um, and then I think there's the other way where is sorry, I lost my train of thought. Um, we'll come back to that, but it's just like I think there's different ways of coping where you just go to either extreme. Like you do what you have to do to survive, or you just check out mentally and you're just going through the motions because you don't want to invest too much emotionally into what's happening to you.
Right, and I guess that's where you can see burnout, compassion fatigue, um, high attrition and turnover in the workplace, and then like sick time, right? People are just calling in being like, you know what, I just can't come to work. I need like that mental health day because I just can't continue coming into an environment where it's so toxic. Or I think one of the terms I heard used is like working in crisis mode all the time, right? It's you can't be working in an environment where you're constantly feeling that stress and that pressure. And then really like how can that be good for our healthcare system in general? Like I mean, if you are so concerned about yourself, how well and like mentally, how well are you there to make sure that you're actually prepared to take care of your patient and not miss things in terms of caring for them. And I can see really where medical error can occur in that aspect as well.
Yeah, and I think also it's important to remember that mental stress can also translate into physical stress, as I'm sure Amy, you know. I mean, even for myself, when I felt like I was in a situation where I was being bullied, I experienced all sorts of physical symptoms. Like I have eczema that was flaring up terribly the whole time I was under this one person. Um, I was having trouble sleeping. I would be missing my exit on the highway to and from work. Um, I was having like serious diarrhea issues. Just maybe that's too much information, but like
It's all
serious
good.
issues. And I just kept saying like it can't be from this one person. But then when I was removed from the situation, all of these symptoms resolve themselves. So I do feel like if you're not sure about how much you're being affected by the workplace, just look at your physical health and has that gotten worse over the course of time, or what is that looking like?
Yeah, and I'm sure that can translate into like eating poorly, decreased decreased appetite, increased appetite, so eating more crappy types of things. And then even that loss of love for the things that you kind of continue to do daily. So for example, like I used to work out quite frequently, and as I was going through this really stressful period, um like I stopped working out. I was eat oh my god, like the food I was eating so much crap during this time, just like so much unhealthy food. And also just feeling tired, lethargic all the time. Like I can like some of those symptoms that you were saying were very similar to me. And then again with mine, it was paired with anxiety, and it was actually quite crippling. Like I ended up being diagnosed with having PTSD from this one particular it wasn't one encounter, it was several encounters with this particular person, and to this day I'm still actually actively taking medication to help combat that anxiety. Like, and I don't even work at that place anymore. So I mean, it can be quite crippling if you don't deal with it sooner rather than later. And like I had even posted that article where someone was bullied to the point where they committed suicide. And I totally can understand where it can get to a point where it feels that way. Because I remember being quite scared and feeling like, hey, I don't feel mentally right. And it's actually a shame that your own peers and colleagues can make you feel that life isn't worth living anymore and that you want to actually take your own life. That's a horrible, horrible way to feel.
Yeah, and just in some of my research, so I came across some really helpful articles, and one of it is just talking about what can you do if you think you're being bullied. So I think it's good just to talk about concretely what you can do if you feel like this is happening to you or someone you know. And one of the things it suggests is you need to firmly tell that person that their behavior is not acceptable, and you need to ask them to stop. So you
Right.
could even have, if you're part of a union, have a union rep with you, have a manager with you if it's someone that's, your peer. And I personally think you need to use the words bullying or harassment. You need to use these words that are really going to help them understand that what they're doing is not right. And it's actually classified as one of those terms. One of the things that was also suggested to me, and this article suggests, is that keep a journal or a diary of what's happening. So if you've
Yeah, I think
had a
that's hugely
really,
important.
yeah, so just writing it down or keeping it on your phone, just point form, the date, the time. If there were words exchanged that were really negative, writing those down, and maybe even writing down your symptoms. If there were other people in the conversation, writing their names down and what the outcome was. And I think that um, if you have done this and nothing's happening, then it's a matter of just reporting it to the person that you report to. And if you're not seeing any action or any resolution, just slowly moving up the chain as needed until someone listens to you. So, another thing is that you also don't want to retaliate because in any case, someone from the outside is not going to know all the fine details of your relationship or what's been happening. So it could, and not to say that you would be the instigator, but it's sometimes hard to see who's really the one that you know is the bully or the victim if there's sort of back and forth retaliation. So it can definitely cause confusion for those that are trying to look into the situation and respond appropriately. So I think it's just good to, even though you might want to retaliate, just, you know, just be the better person and try to do what you can in order to make this a better working environment.
Yeah, I agree. It's, I mean, dealing with bullies in the workplace is terrifying. And I think to a certain degree, you just have to kind of mentally prepare yourself beforehand. Because
Yeah, and I think also in any bullying situation, there are often bystanders that are witnessing this, and they often stay quiet because of the reasons you just mentioned. But if it's something that you feel mentally ready to do, I think it's important that you do speak up. At least if you don't feel comfortable speaking up, at least go to the person who's being bullied and offer your support and maybe some suggestions on what that person can do, just in an effort to slowly change the work culture in nursing.
the bully hopes and counts on the fact that you're going to be isolated. They don't want a whole group of people.
Yeah, I think they also bank on the fact that you might not say anything. Like I think for them that silence just kind of fuels their fire. It's like that person that comes up to you at lunchtime while you're in like high school and corners you to take your money away. They really are hoping that you continue to remain silent. They don't want you to call them out or say, "Hey, this is happening to me," and or stand up to them to say, what you're doing to me is unacceptable. You are being a bully and you're harassing me, and I want you to stop it. And if you can't stop it, we need to take this to a different level." I think that would take the wind out of their sails. Like I can't imagine someone continuing with that behavior when you call it out that way. But I think we do need to talk a little bit about like um, as this is so prevalent and we know that it's widespread in our clinical settings and within the nursing profession, we also know like the consequences of bullying are very serious for not only the people who are suffering it but for the organization on a whole itself. So really we kind of talked about some ways that we can combat it with the individual, but like what about like a systems level, like a systems approach? Like how can we better deal with this situation? Like it's so culturally ingrained. I feel that really the conversation needs to start at academia, right? Like I feel that in colleges, universities where we're in nursing, that there should be education about it. And I don't even think it has to be only at the nursing level. I think if you're coming in as a healthcare professional, and we know it's so prevalent in clinical situations, there needs to be some discussion at the college and university level about what it is and how to deal with it and how to combat it.
Well, I just have a question for you guys because I mean, do they talk about bullying in school? I feel like that is discussed now, is it not? Is it part of the curriculum or
I don't know. It's it to be honest, like I'm not entirely too sure. It'll be actually really good to talk to Jordan as he continues his studies, really to see like
Uh,
do they discuss lateral nursing
are you
violence in
talking
your
about like
program?
Well, I
primary
was
school, or are
talking
you
about
talking about
primary
like
school, but
nursing
just
school?
also in nursing. I know that they don't discuss it at nursing. I was just wondering more for younger kids if this is something that's part of the curriculum, because then it would make sense to have it be part of university or college programs as well, just to continue the teaching and reinforce the learning.
Well, I would say at like the primary level. So, for example, we have a set of twins that are 8, and my daughter's 4. So my boys are in grade 2, and I do know they have those like pink shirt days where it's like, don't be a bully, don't be a bystander. Bullying's not okay. But really, even this is a whole other conversation. How schools deal with bullying is a whole other concept in itself. Like, I mean, it's a huge problem just in general. And really, I guess we haven't seen it in our workplace, and I really hope, knock on wood, it never occurs. But we do know that there are people that are bullied in their workplace, in their environment, and there's like you said, it's a two-pronged approach. Either they continue to come to their job unsatisfied and they ended up taking it out on themselves, or really the worst case scenario is that they take it out on others. So we hear about these cases all the time in the states and various and actually we don't hear about it as much here, and I don't think it's that it doesn't happen. It's just we don't hear. Of course they're not going to report the smaller things, but for example, somebody coming into work and shooting up their workplace, like, I mean, yes, there are those situations where that person's a sociopath or a psychopath, but there are a lot of underlying issues with bullying where this person has either lost their job or they've been reporting harassment, and then they come in and they make that really wrong decision to now take it out on their coworkers. Like I feel like it's such a huge issue, but I don't know if anybody really has their finger on the pulse in terms of how do we deal with this and dealing with it at that level, that education level where, they're young and we should be teaching them about bullying and how to deal with it, that some of these people who are young become bullies in their adult life, right? So I don't know, it's a very difficult situation.
I think so there's a part of it that I think you have to deal with at the executive level. I think there's a huge part of it that you have to deal with the executive level, because a lot of this stuff is trickle down from the folks up there. Their job in large part is going to set the tone for the organization that they represent. And this isn't just the case in nursing, it's the case in every workplace. If your CEOs and executives and VPs and directors are all spouting the usual, anti-bullying campaign stuff, but what they're engaging in is itself bullying from the top down, or whether they have that kind of the mentality of by any means necessary kind of mentality. Like, I think in a situation where I was dealing with workplace violence and I went above my supervisor's head after I trying to deal with it with him, and I went up to, I think it was at that point, the VP of my department, and they were entirely unsympathetic to my plight, and essentially they told me, you have to nut up or shut up.
Oh my gosh.
That mentality was certainly not helpful, and it was evident to me that they were in fact probably bullying my boss, and my boss was in turn bullying me. And does it really matter now how many people are? Maybe that person themselves was being bullied by the CEO or the person above them. Who knows? Or maybe they just got into that position because the system favors a lot of these hierarchical systems that are currently so prevalent in the workplace. They favor people who have those characteristics, who are willing to kind of do whatever it takes, burn any bridge and sacrifice any relationship to get ahead. And if that means, taking it out on the people below them, then they will. If this kind of dog eat dogs scenario is very short sighted, obviously, because it leads to higher attrition, it leads to kind of the immiseration of the people in your workplace. And it's the quintessence of workplace bullying, and it's a horrible way of managing, but it's the easiest way of managing. You can either manage by earning people's respect, or you can manage by fear.